Welcome back to today's episode for the rather action-packed Season 1 finale of Halo. Did they manage to hit a home run to end things on? Let's get into it. The episode opens up to the aftermath of last week's shockwave, generated by McKee touching the artifact. It caused a hell of a lot more damage than I initially thought last week. Last week's shockwave just looked like it knocked people over, but this week it showed us various parts of the building or base in ruin. It was pretty destructive. Chief tries to find McKee with the artifact, but is confronted by Riz and Vanek, who are holding Kai at gunpoint. Along with Jacob's help, he manages to convince the two Spartans to stand down, and he reveals their dark history.
It's all true. I was there.
The team of Spartans split up, with Chief, Vanek and Riz trying to track down McKee, who's managed to shoot her way to the Covenant ship in the hangar and escape. Shocker. Whilst Kai chases down Halsey and her assistant with revenge in mind as they try to flee the base. Their escape doesn't quite go as planned, as Key boards the ship and, well, we say goodbye to the good doctor's assistant. With that distraction, Halsey manages to escape as Kai looks for a route off the ship as it crashes. Miraculously, she survives rather unscratched. Don't ask me how that works. In the lab, Chief, Cortana, Miranda, and Parangoski try to track down where McKee has fled to. Chief uses his feelings to give substance to his belief McKee was truthful with him, and Parangoski ridicules him for it. Cortana does manage to shut Parangoski up though.
Oh, and did you feel it as well?
In my own way. Yes, ma'am.
Cortana gives the audience a crash course in technobabble that reveals where the Covenant planet is. Parangoski says she'll send 10,000 Marines, and Chief pretty much tells her to have a good supply of body bags. Chief and Silver Team prep as they will go to the Covenant planet to retrieve the artifact, alone. Silver Team share some banter on the ship on whether or not they were really going to shoot Kai in the head and if she would have shot them.
Of course I would have. I would just felt bad about it.
Meanwhile, Halsey is tracked down and captured by USNC troops after trying to flee from the escape pod. Miranda informs Halsey that she's too dangerous to send to prison or to cut loose, and will in fact be sentenced under Article 72, which means she's going to be executed. It's a pretty cold scene between mother and daughter, and Jacob has been watching this unfold via hologram zoom. McKee lands on the Covenant planet and delivers the artifact in hopes to join them on the Great Journey. In private, the two aliens in charge are discussing their disgust for McKee, but once they conclude the Great Journey, they will burn McKee along with mankind. They literally just don't care about her. At least we got that confirmed. Back on the Pelican ship, Cortana explains to John that Halsey wanted her to take over John's body and mind, and in doing so, John would have ceased to exist. Her reasoning for not doing so was that John's humanity was what made him special, and she didn't want to destroy that.
So you no longer want to take over my body?
I'll wait for the less beaten up version.
Chief along with Silver Team managed to navigate through the dangerous space and arrive at the Covenant planet, where they then proceed to perform an orbital drop. This was pretty cool, and partway through I was thinking, where are the parachutes? They're not just gonna, land without any sort of slowdown, right?
Afternoon.
Silver Team clear the immediate area, which is mostly devoid of any real defenses, because why have defenses if you don't expect anyone to find you?
No one will remember you.
That's cold, Kai. Real cold. Back on Reach, Halsey has a seizure and dies, and Miranda deduces that Halsey they have is a Flash clone. On the Covenant planet, the aliens unite for two pieces of the artifact that cause Chief to freeze up, exposing him to the aliens on guard and causing all hell to break loose. Zealot warriors who were underneath the mountain show up to fight the Silver Team, and there's a lot of them. Old chum from episode 5 shows up for round 2 of the Chief.
Well, shit.
After giving Riz a quick beating and giving the Chief the mother of all headaches, McKee intervenes and activates the artifact, which gives us another shockwave, which wipes out a lot of the Covenant troops and reveals the map to the Halo ring. Chief sleepwalks to meet McKee and meets her in what I'm going to call the Dreamverse. She tries to convince Chief to stay with her in this universe, but Chief tries to convince her to return back to reality with him. Unwilling to do so, and with the Chief in a daze in the real world, Kai takes responsibility and puts a bullet in McKee, first closing down the Dreamverse and waking up the Chief. Due to Kai shooting McKee, the map wasn't fully revealed and Covenant tried to capture the Chief to complete it. With the other 3 members of Silver Team incapacitated and the Covenant about to overwhelm his position, Chief's unable to touch the artifact without freezing up, so he forces Cortana to take control of his mind and body, to save both Silver Team and to take possession of the artifact. Cortana enters God mode and disposes of a scary Covenant dude with the Pelican ship via remote control, and grabs the artifact and saves Silver Team. Easy work. Whilst escaping, Cortana manages to cauterize some of the wounds Riz sustained and pilots the ship. Back on Reach, we see Halsey overlook Vasily and give some monologue on how she believes the Halo Ring will allow mankind to fulfill its potential before disappearing with some mysterious figure. Kai, sensing something's amiss, tries to talk to the Chief only to be met with silence. This episode had a lot going for it. For a start, there was zero Quan, which is always a win in my book. However, I certainly think she'll play a big role next season for bringing back the Chief. I don't know how it will happen, but that's my bet going off her last episode of season 1.
Just like that.
I really enjoyed the state of disorientation in the opening. The visuals and the sound design were great in putting us in John's shoes. Plus the damage he received, the makeup looked great. Another standout sequence was navigating the starfield to the Covenant planet. The visual effects were absolutely on point here and it was a great sequence.
Come again, I can't hear you!
One nitpick I had was that I wish a Spartan would have bit the dust. These guys look nigh on impossible to kill. Sure, Riz got severely hurt, but Kai seemed to survive all sorts, including what looked like an inescapable ship crash. And even when Chief got hit for a home run, he was all good practically. Basically, if the team seems to survive crazy situations, then we're going to lose any type of suspense. I know the Spartans are supposed to be super soldiers, but even Mjolnir shouldn't be thicker than plot armor, right? Also, was there a deleted scene or did I miss some dialogue? Riz and Vanek both seem to have had a personality change in this episode, as they're a lot more humorous and, well, human, uttering one-liners and such.
Come to daddy.
Really gonna shoot me?
You know I would have.
Absolutely. No question. Jesus, I can't believe you two. You're like ice cold.
They might have had it removed off screen, but they should have shown this at least, otherwise they just seem really out of character. They're certainly more fun, but they don't match what we've previously seen. Just one scene could have explained this, or did the writers decide to just inject some more fun? I'm actually surprised we didn't get any real major events in this episode though. A lot of people theorized we might have seen the Fall of Reach, or even had the Chief find the Halo Ring at the end of the episode, but none of that happened surprisingly. Chief having his personality wiped might have actually endeared him to the fans, but I don't mind trying to see the human side of John, otherwise we'll just get a blank killing machine and not much substance behind it. However, they've certainly killed off the love story with McKee because, you know, she's dead. But I reckon Chief will return in the early episodes of season 2 when Quan shows up and restores humanity, somehow. In terms of action, this episode had it all really. We had that cool orbital drop sequence and Chief had his moment to shine when he tried to save Riz before he was overwhelmed, and even Vanek finally got to play with the Needler. However, the true standout moment was Cortana entering God mode. The only problem now is that she made it look so easy, and you sort of think that's the way to go. For the greater good, sure, they might need John to activate the artifact, but in terms of the war, well, sorry John, but Cortana just has this under control, so she don't need you. Halsey continues to be fascinating, and John has grown a lot over the season, and Cortana's smart quips help lighten the mood here and there.
Spaghettified.
Stretched, twisted, torn apart.
Right. And you didn't think I should know this before we left?
Our odds for success were already so low, I didn't want to worry you.
We had one major death in McKee, and one side character bit the dust in the form of Halsey's assistant. I was surprised he died, as I thought he might have made it a bit longer. But I guess if she's a clone, and he wasn't, then it would have made it more of a sticky situation to get him back with Halsey. I don't know. Anyway, speaking of Halsey, when exactly did she switch places with the clone? Was the package the assistant spoke of the Flash clone, or was it something else?
Yes, they'll arrest you. The package is secure. Aren't you listening to me? We still have options.
It was a bit of a switcheroo that's hard to understand, and if the package was indeed the clone, it's a bit disappointing. that pretty much concludes my thoughts on the season finale. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to them, and let me know in the comments below what you thought of the finale and where you think the show goes in season 2. I'm hoping we get the fall of Reach, but I'm not sure where this team is going with the story and what might happen. It's all up in the air.